the Rob Vieira podcast up before Sunday, so hopefully tomorrow you can check that out. Really good stuff, too. It's insane. I was looking at Rob Vieira and how much money he's won over the years, and the fact that he wasn't even like a best ball guy until about 2 years ago, and he's been crushing best ball. So we have a lot of great content in that, a lot of good stuff on what he did on the waiver wire this week, and really good ways to win your league, quite frankly.
Wonderful.
All right, so that is the High Stakes Lowdown. And I think we have Bill Querbees is going to come on the High Stakes Lowdown next week. Sorry, I'm having microphone issues over here. This would never happen on Blue Wire. Bill Querbees is going to be the guest on the High Stakes Lowdown next week, so it will be very, very good. All right, so different format tonight. Our guest is actually going to come on in about 10 minutes. So, Dave, this is by request of the prognosticator, which he enjoys our banter so much, Dave.
Oh, I'm sure.
That
he
thinks
tuned in right now.
We need to lead off the show with it.
More banter.
It was today, or this week was one of the episodes where I feel like I have the show put together at like 3:30, and it's all ready to go, talk about tonight. And then the proverbial shit hits the fan, and I have to rearrange it. I didn't bother rearranging it. I just added to it. So there's a lot of stuff to get to. All right, leading things off, David Njoku has been placed on injured reserve, according to the Browns on Twitter. Njoku suffered a broken wrist this past week. He's going to be sidelined for at least 8 weeks. Demetrius Harris, Ricky Seals-Jones are going to be the guys that are going to step in for him. Neither one of them is going to be a great fantasy option. Dave, I think you favor Demetrius Harris over Ricky Seals-Jones.
I mean, I really truthfully don't know a whole lot about Demetrius Harris. I do know a bit about Ricky Seals-Jones and that he sucks. So, and he's been released by teams, and he's just not that good of a player. But he's supposedly this great athlete, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So who knows? One of our RMW4671 wants to know about trying to decide between Demetrius Harris or Will Dissly this week.
I like Will Dissly.
I do too, by quite a bit. Actually, he's showing something. He's kind of maybe breaking out a little bit. He was a 4th-round pick a couple of years, two years ago.
Yeah.
And he scored 2 touchdowns, and they really don't have a lot of receiving options in Seattle other than Lockett.
Rainmaker chiming in.
I guess you have Metcalf or whatever.
That's true. We have a question about him coming up, too. Rainmaker in the chat room, of course, former guest of the show, Biplab Mandel, saying R.I.P. Njoku. I have to give Biplab a shout-out because he beat me in one of our Dynasty leagues by, I was like 156, 151 this week.
Kentucky Dynasty?
It was a Kentucky Dynasty, yeah. Really
good
frustrating.
Job, well done.
That is my really good team that I was loaded for bear this year. It's 0-2. Which is great. It's fun.
Well, at least you have victory points, right?
There's victory. Yes, there is victory points in Kentucky Dynasty this year.
That's awesome.
Which I noticed,
good job, Farrell.
And so I think I am 0-2, but I'm in like 4th place or 5th place, which is great.
All right.
Because I'm putting up good scores.
Well, everyone's happy to hear about that for you.
I'll tell you who people are not happy to hear about. Pro Football Talk has reported this on Twitter. The Patriots have released wide receiver Antonio Brown. Quote, "The New England Patriots are releasing the Antonio Brown. We appreciate the hard work of many people over the past 11 days, but we feel that it is best to move in a different direction at this time." Brown's obviously
stop payment on the check for his
exactly,
bonus.
Brown has been involved in a lot of off-field stuff, sticking to fantasy here. Josh Gordon, Julian Edelman, Philip Dorsett are the top 3 receivers. And it's very possible that Antonio Brown maybe does not play another professional down in the NFL. Dave, what are you doing with him in redraft? Let's tackle that first.
You know what's funny? Let me just, before you get to that, I wonder if there was if Brown was in the locker room and that news came. I'm sure this didn't happen, but let's just pretend it did.
Sure.
And the news came down, and Josh Gordon's there, and he's like, "Man, you gotta get your shit together."
Oh, can you imagine that? Yeah.
You know what? It's true. Anyway, what was the question?
Redraft. What are you doing with him if you own him in a redraft league? And Football Guys or the FFPC main, are you holding on to him just to see what happens for a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I'd hang on to him for another week or two just to see what would happen. But yeah, you can't feel anything positive at all. His career, in my opinion, is likely over. He's just gone too haywire. First level psycho or whatever.
He broke the flake scale.
The flake scale, yeah, he's off the flake scale.
Okay, let's get into this dynasty trade that went down in the FFPC. How long ago?
It was this evening. So since the Antonio Brown news broke,
right,
in our 350-plus dynasty leagues, we've had precisely one Antonio Brown trade, and he was traded for a rookie wide receiver, undrafted, Preston Williams from Miami. So it was Antonio Brown for
Preston Williams.
Straight up for Preston Williams.
That's shocking enough. What maybe shocks people even more, Dave, what side do you prefer in Antonio Brown v. Preston Williams?
I would take Preston Williams. I really would.
The unknown aspect?
He's really not that unknown because we talked about off air.
Well, I mean, he's unproven, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, he had like 1,400 receiving yards, 14 touchdowns, and those numbers are probably
Is he
totally
Colorado
wrong.
State? Is that where he went? I want to say
Colorado State, yeah.
I think it was Colorado State.
He had a killer last season. I mean, he had his own off-the-field issues, but he would have gotten drafted much earlier, and the Dolphins, they made a lot of not great moves, but this was a really good one. Preston Williams looks like a keeper.
Dynasty, are you still hanging on to him? You're not dropping Antonio Brown yet?
No, and I probably wouldn't try and trade him. I mean, you just got to pray, I guess, more or less.
See, that was the question. Like, I didn't know if you could cash in value on Antonio Brown, either trading for him or trading him away right now. But your advice is to stand pat.
I mean, I don't know. I guess you could try and trade for him, but I feel like the odds are so slim.
Would you give up a 2020 second rounder for him?
No, I'd give up a third.
Give up a third. Okay.
What about you?
That seems about right. I can't, first and second rounds I'll hoard. Third and fourth rounds and fifth and they just mean I can't hit on them on a consistent basis. So they're whatever.
Yeah, sometimes you get lucky and you get Jerick McKinnon and then just clogs your roster for 5 years to forever suck.
That's true. ESPN's Adam Teicher has reported the Chiefs are, quote, likely to be cautious about overloading, unquote, LaShawn McCoy in Week 3. LaShawn McCoy was limited in practice, all 3 practices this week for Kansas City. He is expected to play against Baltimore on Sunday, but he's not going to get an 80% snap rate. He is not going to get a 3-down workload. Darwin Thompson, potentially Darrell Williams, who actually picked up in a bunch of leagues very, very cheap this week, should be involved. We'll talk about LaShawn McCoy here first, Dave. If he is indeed active, would you feel good about him being a top 25 running back this week against Baltimore?
Not really. I mean, Baltimore is a fantastic defense.
It is at the head.
And I do feel that Kansas City's they're going to throw for a lot of yards, that they're going to have more of a passing-centered game. I mean, just because they're missing their lead back. McCoy is old, and he's really not that great. He might get his fair share of catches, though, so, I mean, he might be productive. What was it? Were you looking at top
25 running back?
I mean, yes, probably. I mean, it's a super high-scoring game, and
over/under. You want to guess that?
32 starting backs in timeshare.
Do you want to guess the over/under
for what?
That Chiefs-Ravens game.
52.5.
It is 52. It was at 52.5. It is down to 52. The Dave the Smart money's coming in right now, apparently.
Yeah.
So it's at 52 right now. I'm with you. I think you probably start him. Hey, we got Chris Vincent, a former 2-time six-figure high-stakes fantasy football winner, coming up here to talk about his top 50 football guys team. Before we get to that,
a lot of content.
Too much content.
A little non-fantasy content coming up, apparently.
We do have non-fantasy content coming up.
Well, I mean, we've gotten some emails and
Are you talking about email from ZK?
Yeah, different people sending information in that we want to ask about. So we'll have to ask. Day
trading and MILFs coming up. Don't miss it. Marlon Mack returned to practice today, Dave. Marlon Mack did not practice Wednesday or Thursday, so I think
hopefully limited, someone said.
Yes, and so now is that enough for him to? Are you starting him on Sunday? Are you a little nervous about a snap count? I was actually encouraging people to pick up Jordan Wilkins after after Mack did not practice the last 2 days, but it seems like Mack's going to give it a go, and I don't think you can start Wilkins confidently this week.
Yeah, unless Mack is inactive, I would agree. But calf injuries a calf injury for running back. Remember, who's the worst at all those injuries? He always would piss me off the most was Jordy Nelson. He'd always have something going on, and he'd come out and he'd get one catch, and then he'd get pulled from the game, and he'd have 1 for 17, and that's it. It seemed like that happened 3 or 4 times with Jordy. I just fear with Marlon Mack, if I had any other option even remotely close, I would be looking that direction. Because a calf injury, I just don't see how all of a sudden that heals up, right?
Yeah,
and once you tweak it, you're done. You can't. Your calf is screwed up. It's screwed up.
Especially for running back.
Right.
Running back and receiver, it's so crucial for that. Alshon Jeffrey, speaking of calf injuries, he did not practice again today. Now, the Eagles have ruled up Deshaun Jackson, but they're listing officially Alshon Jeffrey as questionable. He is probably not going to give it a go against Detroit. And we've already seen Philly, Doug Peterson kind of being proactive. Both he and Matt LaFleur for the Packers, they're squaring off this coming Thursday night. They both skipped Wednesday practice and had a walkthrough instead, to kind of save
for next week.
For next week,
that's
yeah.
Very smart.
I can't imagine that Alshon Jeffrey goes. I own Alshon Jeffrey in exactly 1 league. I'm sitting him. Dave, my question to you is, if he is indeed inactive, what's the fantasy value at flex as a second flex for either Nelson Aguilar or J.J. Arcega-Whiteside?
I think Aguilar you have to start. I think he's not a great wide receiver at all, but he does. he does fine when he's heavily targeted, and Wentz is a great quarterback. Arcega-Whiteside's still a rookie. I can't be confident starting him at all. Even with all the injuries, you got to have somebody else.
Let me ask you this. This is probably the most important question.
Start like Renfro over him, for example.
What's the over/under on Zach Ertz targets if Jeffrey's out?
Oh, like 15.
I think it's higher. I'll take the over. No, I'm not even kidding.
I'll put 5 on it, but I mean, if it's you're probably right. So 15.
Well, then let's go higher.
No, 15. I'll take. All
right,
15.
so I have over 15 Zach Ertz targets. This bet is only activated if Jeffrey is inactive.
Cool.
Okay.
I actually like.
All right, this will be fun.
This makes you or Rob or whoever work harder on it.
Yeah, well, Rob for sure. Kudos to you, my friend.
Rob's kind of mad about he's not producing both your shows, only one show.
Only one show. I produced the other one. Yeah. It's to him. It's to me, not him. Oh. I got 5 on it.
I got 5 on
it. That is Ertz. 15 targets. I have the over. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've waited long enough. Let's get into our guest tonight. I want to bring him in right now. He finished second in the 2007 Pay the Fan competition, winning a cool $125,000. He finished second in the 2009 FFOC, and he won $105,000. He's been playing in high-stakes FFPC leagues since 2009, winning Football Guys Players Championship leagues, FFPC high-stakes dynasty titles along the way, and he currently has a top 50 team in the 2019 8,400 team cap in the Football Guys Players Championship. Please welcome into the program, making his debut, it is Chris Vincent. Chris, welcome into the show. Thanks for hanging out with us on a lovely Friday night.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's our pleasure, for sure, no question. I know you took a bit of a tumble in the standings, but honestly, Chris, you got to be jacked to see your team still in the top 50 after a couple of weeks of play. This could be a special team for you here in the Football Guys League this year.
I think so. I was just looking at my roster again and realized that I have the number 1 running back as my 3rd running back, so I'm in good shape until Noel Gordon comes back.
Well, even when he does come back, I think there's some good standalone value for Eckler, don't you think? I mean, this is a guy that even if Gordon is there, Eckler could carve out top 30, maybe even top 25 value here with his pass-catching chops, don't you think?
Yeah, he should be at least a flex, I would think. I slept on him a little bit because I had him last year, and he didn't do much when he was starting while Gordon missed a couple of games. I think this is my only Eckler share. I actually traded him in a dyno for Curtis Samuel.
Oh, interesting. That could pay off dividends down the road. Dave, go ahead with your point.
I feel like Gordon's going to come back and get hurt right away. I really do.
I think that's sort of like the untold story of this. And I was bringing this up with...
Speaking of calf injuries, right?
Yeah, exactly. On the Appleton Trophy Fantasy Football Show, which you can now hear from 4 to 5 on 95.3 and 99.1 FM here in Northeast Wisconsin. You can also listen to the ScoreWI.com.
This applies to less than 1% of our listeners, but go ahead.
You can stream it on there as well as download the Score app, Score WI app as well. But I was talking about this yesterday, and I made the point of like, look, just because Melvin Gordon, if he does indeed report and come back, that's no guarantee that he's just going to remain healthy for the rest of the season. This is a guy, when he's gotten full training camp practices and everything and prepped the right way, he's still gotten banged up.
Well, plus it's the Chargers. They get everyone hurt all the time.
That's another great point. Ask at Two-Packer. He'll tell you right away. So I think that, Eckler could be the league winner this year. And we'll be following that closely. Chris, let me ask you this. Not only are you a former Football Guys in Dynasty League champ here in the FFPC, you have the team in the top 50. Congrats on that. You drafted this team all the way back in mid-June, and you got some pretty good value with Chris Godwin, getting him at the 411. I think you're pretty bullish on Godwin. How good are his chances of actually outscoring his real-life teammate Mike Evans for Tampa this season?
In PPR, I think he definitely has a shot. They have him moving all over the formation. He's playing the old Larry Fitz role in Arians' offense. I love Godwin. He was probably my most owned player last year when I was able to get him, round 15 and later. Where I took him, I thought I was, reaching for him a little bit, but I saw him creeping up, all summer long. And I think that's the only share I have of him.
Dave, you like Godwin this year. You think he outscores Mike Evans, given what we've seen in the first couple of weeks?
I actually do. I do think he does, and I think that Evans was probably a little bit overdrafted and Godwin was underdrafted. I mean, as this kind of playing out, the thing with Evans is he's always split out wide. Winston's not all that accurate, and he runs a lot of those deep balls and stuff like that. Whereas, like you just said, Godwin goes all over the place, and there's just so much more opportunity for him to get targets versus those deep balls that Winston has to be not only accurate, and then there has to be no pass interference, and it's just tough for it. And Evans, to me, I mean, he's had a great young career, but it just seems like he's a little bit plateaued as where he's at with Winston as quarterback.
Yeah, well, Winston, every single time I watch it, it's what's so frustrating for me as a Florida State fan. I watch the Bucs play, and Winston is still constantly squinting, and I know it's a thing that he deals with, but it was actually.
Can you afford LASIK yet?
Joe Bryant.
$30,000.
Joe Bryant had in his random shots this week about I know Florida State fans are with me on this one where they showed Winston after he threw a pick or something, and he's like squinting trying to see the replay. It's just like this goes back to his college days. It's so annoying. It's so frustrating.
That's how he thinks with a squint.
I think yes, exactly.
Is that a side effect of eating too many crab legs?
No question. See, all that.
Feeling too many.
No, listen, all that iodine.
He's a thief.
No, you don't want that. Well, thievery aside,
hey,
there's too much.
What's it? Leroy's listening. What's that called when you get too much seafood with your?
The real Leroy is in the chat room right now.
What is that?
What?
You know what I'm talking about, Chris? When you have too much seafood and you have circulation issues, whatever the hell. What was it?
Salmonella?
No, something else. But whatever. Who cares?
Well, this is not the human physiology show tonight. It could be the T.J. Hawkins.
Gout. Leroy. Gout.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
he has gout.
There you go.
Whatever.
Not speaking of gout, but let's talk about T.J. Hawkinson here, Dave, because it's been a Jekyll and Hyde season for him so far.
Yeah. So Hawkinson blew up week one. I do want to ask you, Chris. As part of the question, did you start Hawkinson week one? And if the answer is no, did you then start in week two and got really pissed off because he didn't do very well? And then, with regard to that, are you starting him this week and going forward, or what are you thinking about Hawkinson on a go-forward basis? Is week one more accurate or week two?
And for the listeners' benefit, Detroit is at Philly this weekend. Go ahead, Chris.
Somewhere in between. I had the same feeling about Hawk that I had about Quentin Nelson last year. Like, his blocking and just his sneaky athleticism. That he's, on a path to the Hall of Fame. I know he's only played 2 games, but he's got that kind of skill. And the first week, I think I played him on a quarter of my teams. And then, of course, I saw that he set records for the most yardage for a debut as a tight end. So I played him everywhere in my second week, and 2 points. So this week, with the Njoku injury, I've been doing quite a bit of shuffling. I got a lot of Disley all of a sudden, so I'm probably splitting like 50-50 between him and Disley. I love Hawkinson. I think he's going to be a great player, but I read that he was blocking most of the time last week versus that Charger pass rush. So I think he might be
that makes sense.
Having the same assignment this week. But I could see him scoring, a sneaky red zone touchdown.
Chris, let me ask you this. If I set the over-under on T.J. Hawkinson catches at 55 for 2019, if I set it at that, would you take the over or under on Hawkinson catching more or less than 55 passes this year in Detroit?
It's a good number. I think I might go over. I like Galladay's talent a lot. I've never been a big Marvin Jones fan, but I think Stafford has been waiting for a tight end that will catch the ball. And Patricia, he loves to run the ball. He's not going to take him off the field. I think he's going to, have a lot more snaps than Jesse James. So I'd probably go a little bit over on that.
Dave, over or under 55 catches for Hawkinson, in your opinion, this year? Chris is going over.
If I'm actually betting on it, I would bet under because there's the injury risk.
Okay.
I was betting on it.
Right.
But I think if you assume health, I think that I would say that I actually agree with you that 55 is a good number. I would then take the over if he's healthy the whole 16. I think like 60 is kind of 60, 63, whatever.
Right. I get it. Well, speaking of missing time, knowing that Kareem Hunt would not be back until week 10, Chris, at the earliest, you decided to go after him at the 902 in this league. Now, for the listeners, to remind the listeners, this was a league that was drafted in mid-June, so his ADP hadn't fully settled yet. Did that play a part in when you took Kareem Hunt?
Yeah, I'm definitely a Kareem fanboy. One of my good friends went to Toledo, and it was, hyping him up to me his rookie season, and I loved the contact balance and the vision, and thought he could really explode in Casey's offense. And then Ware got hurt, I think, in that second or third preseason game. So I owned a Hunt literally on every team, and he was great for me most of the year. So, I wanted to get a share of him the first chance I got this year. So it probably was too early, but I do like his opportunity to come in late in the season and do some damage. Cleveland has a pretty attractive playoff schedule, and you never know. As many touches as Chubb's going to get, he might be ready for some rest by that time. Kareem will be fresh.
And I think the other thing to keep in mind, you're trying to win $250,000 in the FPC. You're trying to win $500,000 in the FFPC main event. You look at a guy like Nick Chubb, who should be ridden pretty hard here on all three downs, given that it's Dalton, Hilliard, and, well, not Eli McGuire anymore because he got cut. But there is nobody really behind Chubb. And if Chubb were to get hurt after Hunt comes back, there is nobody behind Hunt, and Hunt has already proven to be a three-down running back. So if you're looking for a guy, Dave, we always talk about this, the guy who goes on this insane run, weeks 14 through 16, if Chubb were to go down, Kareem Hunt could be massive.
Yeah, Chubb's not getting hurt. Don't worry about it.
Well, I'm not. No, you don't know that, and I know you're saying that tongue-in-cheek.
Chubb power cleans 400 pounds, buddy. Don't worry about Chubb. He's fine.
Yeah, well, he's fine right now. He's fine right now, no question.
I'm just kidding. I mean, anyone can get hurt.
Sometimes you need to hit the waiver wire hard, and you won't have to as far as the Cleveland running back goes, Chris, because you already have Kareem Hunt on this team. But you've already been hitting the waiver wire hard here, Dave. He wants to ask you about it between Ogunbowale and Ross.
Yeah, I know. I'm fake pronouncing Ogunbowale.
Dare Ogunbowale. Now, you're not a Wisconsin Badgers fan, but I am, so I know how to pronounce his name.
You grab Dare Ogunbowale and John Ross off the waiver wire for the better part of $300 each. Who are you more John Ross, he's the number one receiver in football. Who the hell do you think he's going to be more confident about?
He's not the number one receiver in football. He's been very good.
He might be number one after 2 weeks.
I'll look it up.
Yeah, number one. I'm sure
he
he's
is
number one
yardage.
Yardage. There you go. See, Chris knows. So you're more confident about John Ross, who's the number one yardage receiver in all of football, or Dare Ogunbowale?
Just at least try. At least try.
Being a factor in your lineup for the remainder of the season. Although the running backs are not so great in Tampa. Go ahead.
Big Boss Ross. I've been on him for 3 years. I loved him as a rookie, his leadership ability, his speed. I've been waiting for him, and I finally just dumped him in my Dynasty League. And I think he's going to be great all year as long as A.J. Green is out. That could be another 4 or 5 weeks. And I'll hang on to him after that because it looks like they're scheming to get him the ball. I think he's had 10 or 12 targets in each game. It might be a set this week versus Buffalo's stingy cornerbacks, but long term, I think he's a lot more valuable. Dare has
Chris,
just been released from this team.
Oh, he did. Was this tonight that you released him? That you released Ogunbowale?
I had to, yeah. Njoku going down, and my only other tight ends are Harris and Hawkinson. I had to make a move for some depth.
Everyone pour out a half a beer for Ogunbowale.
Dare
hitting the waiver wire. So
hold on. Don't get in. I know what you're going to get into. Don't get into it yet. Chris, you
have no idea what I'm going to say.
I know what you're going to say. Chris, you talk about John Ross, what a big fan you were, but you are putting your money where your mouth is as far as what you and your son's new attire is as far as John Ross goes. Can you share with the listeners a little bit? It's not just you picking him up on fantasy teams, but he's affecting your real-life wardrobe.
Right. I share one of the dynasty teams with my oldest son. I've been trying to get him into fantasy for 3 or 4 years now, and with limited success. But Ross was our first second-round pick that we made. I think we traded the first-round pick that year. And we've been waiting for him. He hasn't done much. And then I saw his jersey on clearance after last year for like $15 or $20. So I picked up 2 of them. And we wore him, I think, the first game of the season last year. I think he actually had a touchdown, but didn't do much after that. And then I was watching him in the preseason this year, and I said, wow, who's this number 11 out there? He's pretty fast. Looks like John Ross. And realized he changed his number.
Yeah, now you have a game-worn collector's jersey.
Yeah,
you wore it in the game, not him.
It's a collectible item, no question. Dave, now go ahead with your point.
Well, it's not a point. So after his rookie year, so just to be, in case anyone forgot,
right?
John Ross's rookie year, he had one 12-yard rush with a fumble.
I saw it live. I remember I was watching this live.
What a hell of a run! Oh, shit, he fumbled.
Yeah.
Oh, man. And then that was it. They're like, they put him on the shelf or whatever happened.
Well, you know what's so ironic about that is I was watching. No, I'll tell you the story real quick. I did this show, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour, and I went. Sometimes I'll go to a bar afterwards for a beer to unwind. And I was watching. No, hold on.
99% of the
That's
time.
not true at all. It's not 99% of the time. But I was at a bar, and Washington was playing when John Ross was still catching passes there, and I didn't know anything about him. And I was watching this game because it was a West Coast game, and I'm like, this Ross guy is awesome. He's going to be great in the pros.
Yeah, he's just way faster than everybody.
Right, and then I never heard anything from him again until I was watching out with my boys a Sunday game, and I saw Ross's one touch that year. Like it wasn't the same bar, but it was kismet that I was out with both of them. All right, so here's what I want to share. This is what I thought you were going to bring up, so you were right. I didn't know what you were going to bring up. This is current. This is not prior to week 3. This is current receiving yardage leaders, okay? Now, I feel like if this was a category on Family Feud, both teams would get 3 strikes without getting anybody. Here are your receiving leaders after the Thursday night game in the NFL. Number 1, 277 yards, DJ Chark. Number 2, John Ross.
That's an extra game. It shouldn't count.
But I'm just saying. I said after the Thursday night game. DJ Chark, number 1, 277. John Ross, who led everybody after week 2 with 270 yards. Sammy Watkins, number 3 at 247. And number 4, no, it's not Julio. No, it's not Beckham. It is not anybody who was drafted in the first round. It is, of course, well, I guess somebody was technically drafted in the first round of the real NFL draft. Marquise Brown is number 4. So your receiving leaders currently at this moment, DJ Chark, John Ross, Sammy Watkins, Marquise Brown. You can't predict this, folks. It's great. Chris Vincent, our guest tonight, a former 2-time six-figure six-figure cash prize winner at the High Stakes Fantasy Football level, has a top 50 team in the Football Guys Players Championship. We already talked to you about Ogumbawale and Ross. Let's talk about another big-time waiver wire addition in Demarcus Robinson. The last couple of weeks, people have been scooping him up. Until Tyreek Hill returns, who do you want in your fantasy lineups? And we'll start. You can. If it's different this week, that's fine. But they're hosting Baltimore at Kansas City this week. Are you starting Mecole Hardman or Demarcus Robinson if you can only play one?
I'd go Hardman. I really liked what I saw from him. He has that pops off the screen look to him, the electricity, and he would have had real similar numbers to D-Rob last week. I think he had like a 72 or 74-yard touchdown that got called back on a holding penalty. D-Rob's been in the league for a couple of years, and he's had a couple of good games, but he's never been consistent.
Dave, are you with that? Hardman over Robinson right now? If you can only play one. You know what's funny is I was actually messaging with our good buddy Ray Chung over across the pond, and he has a couple of leagues where he has Robinson and Hardman, and I think he's actually playing them both. There is one league this week in Kentucky, actually, where I have to make a decision. Hardman over Robinson. I have Hardman in there right now. Chris is with me on Hardman. Are you with us? Hardman over Robinson.
I don't have that decision literally anywhere. I haven't given much thought to it, so I'm going to just roll with you guys on that one because I really don't have a great opinion. Just be honest.
I'll tell you this from the chat room right now. Rainmaker, Biplab Mandel says he's playing Hardman. Waskai, our resident Ivy League professor, Kern Reeve, says that he's starting both in one of his Football Guys leagues this week. Otherwise, he's saying Demarcus Robinson.
Saying Demarcus over Landry is what he was saying. Actually.
Oh, over Landry. I'm sorry. Yeah, I misread that. You're right.
Fine.
Yeah, so he's starting Demarcus.
Landry's a little depressing.
Jarvis Landry. But
he sucks.
Okay, but let's think about this a little bit. David Njoku's out.
He might get more targets.
And I feel like they run similar routes. Chris, you can weigh in on this. Does the fact that Njoku is out not only improve Landry because there's going to be more targets to go around, but the fact that they were probably running similar possession type routes where Landry all of a sudden is a back end flex for you?
I haven't thought about that yet, but yeah, that's a good point. I haven't been on Landry in a couple of years, but I could see that happening. I don't think they're going to really feed Demetrius Harris or anyone else.
One player, just if we're talking about Cleveland, that has kind of been forgotten about a little bit is Antonio Callaway, and he's coming off a 4-week suspension after the 4th week.
Right.
He's been dropped in dynasty leagues, in some leagues. Like I'm in my 8 private leagues. He's a free agent in a few of them. So I think he's not a bad pickup. He actually, the team still likes him. and he might get some targets. He might get some run as well.
Well, and I think the thing to keep in mind with Callaway, doesn't it seem like Beckham's on the injury report like all the time?
Yeah, he's always got something going on.
He fights through it, but at some point he's gonna take a week or two off, and I think then all of a sudden Callaway, you play him that week, especially if it's a blow-up week and Mayfield's throwing the ball all over the place, then all of a sudden Callaway looks pretty attractive.
The 2018 receivers that came out, I was looking this up. I was looking up Phenom score on RotoViz, and DJ Chark had a 2-point something. I remember that was part of the reason I liked him.
He had a big Phenom.
The number 2 Phenom score that year was Antonio Callaway with a 3.0 something.
Callaway would have been a first-round pick. It was the off-field stuff that dropped him down. So I like Callaway. I think that's a good point.
Anyway, so moving on to let's go talk about the Saints a little bit. Now that Drew Brees is problematic, he's not. What is it, 6 weeks?
Pouring one out for him. Yeah, just had surgery in Los Angeles. He's going to try to rehab there, but he's hoping they did place him on IR. But in the meantime, Dave, we don't know what's going on at quarterback there.
Yeah, and Jared Cook was the question here. Do we want to be benching him with Teddy Bridgewater throwing it to him, or actually maybe you see a better play because he wasn't doing all that well with Brees. Bridgewater's not. He's not like a rookie or second-year guy where a lot of those players look to throw to tight ends.
Sean Payton has already said they're going to use both those guys, and I got to believe that whether it's Bridgewater or Taysom Hill, that Jared Cook, I think, would be like a good safety blanket type guy in this offense.
Yeah, Taysom Hill, for God's sakes, that guy, he never wants to throw.
So when he's in, it's going to be a run?
No, I mean, well, if he's in, it's either going to be a run or he's going to throw it to the guy who ran a 7-yard curl. That's going to be Jared Cook probably.
Or Michael Thomas.
I guess, hey, Chris, I don't know if we had a question here, but
no,
go ahead and talk.
Yeah. Probably with the Saints.
I was thinking about benching Cook for Olsen, but then I just read that Olsen has a bad back and, 37. How old is he? 34, 35-year-old guy with a bad back for a couple weeks. I'm scared he's at risk of an in-game injury, so I'll probably go Cook over him. I actually picked up Taysom Hill in a couple leagues where I had Brees. I had one team where I had Brees and Big Ben as my two quarterbacks, so I dropped Ben, held on to Brees, picked up Brissett and Taysom to see what he does. I don't know. I could see, Sean Payton wanted to show everyone how smart he is and, running a lot of Taysom Hill out there. And, he racks up, 60 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns. It's a good start.
All right. For what it's worth, I was listening to the Football Guys podcast this week, the week preview, the week 3 preview. And Cecil Lammey, who's the host of that, had talked with one of his sources within the New Orleans organization. And when he was – no, listen, he is connected.
That's fine.
Which, by the way, did I tell you – I don't think I told you this off air even. Cecil Lammey liked one of my tweets this week. Did I
You're
tell you
such a loser.
Yeah.
Who gives a crap?
Well, I'm just telling you right now. So anyway, but Lammey said when he was talking with the New Orleans guy that he trusts,
Hashtag sources.
He was talking about okay, so Bridgewater's going to be the guy, and the source said, okay, so Taysom Hill's going to be the guy.
Was it Brad Knapp?
It could have been Brad Knapp. Yeah, that's very funny. That's a total inside joke. Nobody's going to get that. But I think they're going to use both, and we'll see what happens. I think, and this is what's so interesting about that Taysom Hill pickup that you had, Chris, is if Bridgewater does indeed struggle and Hill shows that he's adequate at a minimum in the passing game. Dude, Taysom Hill all of a sudden could be the new running quarterback in the NFL, and I'm hesitant to start either one right now. But I think between Bridgewater and Hill, because they're going to be splitting time. But I think you look at Hill as a good stash right now if you can afford it. Listen, there's no bye weeks yet. Keep him on your roster. See what happens. I think Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are going to be okay. We'll see what happens with New Orleans. I don't think, and I placed a bunch of waivers this week. There was nobody I was super excited about as far as hot waiver wire ads. I think honestly the guy I probably got in a ton of leagues this past Wednesday was Jeff Wilson, and he's just kind of like a depth lottery ticket type guy. So I don't know, Chris, if you had anybody that you were excited about, but I also want to ask you about Devin Smith because Michael Gallup is going to miss the next month or whatever. Are you excited?
Devin Smith is in the league still?
Yes, he is. Yeah.
Oh, hang on, I got to update my.
There you go. Yes, hilarious. So I don't know if you're excited about him at all. Did you put in any bids on him, and did you put in any significant bids on anybody this past week?
Significant bids went towards Disley. I needed to rebuild my TE depth pretty well. I'm actually most excited to see what Taysom does in that offense. Devin Smith, I think I put some bids on today after doing a little bit more research on it and seeing that Amari is going to be matched up with Xavier Howard in Miami, he's got an excellent record of shutting down number one. So I think Devin Smith is a great start. I don't know, a couple weeks from now, I think Gallup is out 2 to 4 weeks. But I think for this week, he's definitely going to be a DFS start for me.
That's a good idea, DFS start. He's super cheap, I'm sure, on like DraftKings and stuff.
Yeah, no question.
Sure.
Absolutely. Dave, Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill aren't the only massive quarterback switches we had this week. There was another one in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, let's talk about a good one, Mason Rudolph, who went to Oklahoma State.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, Mason Rudolph. I like Mason Rudolph. I think he's a good player. But anyway, whatever. James Washington played with Mason Rudolph. He looks like a running back, but he actually plays wide receiver. Do you think you have a little more confidence in James Washington? They've hooked up, probably hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times in practice. They got that connection. What do you think about Mason Rudolph to James Washington?
I like Washington a lot. I thought it was interesting to see them running flea flickers and, different things with Rudolph after Ben left. I think, it might be a more interesting offense than just Ben dropping back. Yeah, it's good to see, Moncrief get pushed aside and, sent away where he should be. I'm a big Deontay Johnson fan. I picked him up in a couple of leagues. I've been stashing him, and there's news came out of him today with him telling a beat reporter that he's now a starter. So I like both him and Washington.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Deontay Johnson told a beat writer today in Pittsburgh that he said he was told that going forward he will be the receiver opposite Juju Smith-Schuster, but James Washington obviously will be the receiver and through wide receiver sets, no question. So we'll be watching that. It's so funny about this. I'm rebuilding. The infamous Blake Carrington Dynasty League that we talk about on this show. I'm rebuilding this year, and I lost Michael Gallup, but I also
rebuilding.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
No,
I'm just saying you. Go. No, I'm not. Let's not even get into it.
Never won a playoff game. My team's always been awesome. Whatever.
Your team actually has been pretty good.
Yeah.
Then someone took some. Like Darrell Henderson ahead of you.
That screwed me.
And you freaked out. And Darrell Henderson has 0 points this year in fantasy.
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
Andy Dalton
I
of Dynasty
Todd
teams.
Gurley as a result.
Say again?
The Andy Dalton of Dynasty teams?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That he would actually help my team this year.
Whatever.
No, but my whole point is I had Michael Gallup and I had been flexing him out the last couple of weeks and I lose him. But you know who I have on that team, and I don't know if I'm going to flex him out this week because I have Greg Olsen and O.J. Howard, but I have Deontay Johnson. I'm excited to see what he can do with Pittsburgh.
If it's a rebuilding team, throw him in there. Who gives a crap?
Yeah, I don't give a crap. I'm just
better for you to lose more.
Well, but the thing is, I want to take third because third in the way that league's set up, third last gets the number one pick.
The old semi-tank.
Exactly. Semi-tank is what I'm all about. I have an interesting email here from a listener, Chris, that I want to read to you, and hopefully you can shed some light on this. This is from our friend and former guest of the show, Zeb Cap. And so he writes, "Gentlemen, I've known Chris since 2008. Chris won $100,000 at the FFOC. Evidence that you do not need to be intelligent or good-looking to win money at fantasy football. Now, he says this, and I don't know if this is accurate. I'm bringing this up. Number one, Chris decided to try day trading after winning $100,000. He says that you woke up, checked the stock market, saw that you were down quite a bit of money, and your wife convinced you to take the loss and stop trading. Now, the stock that you were trading, according to Zeb, if he remembers correctly, was Apple. And that stock holding would be worth over $100 million, over $1 million today if you had held. He wants to know if you know the amount of the Apple stock that what it would be worth today had you held on to it.
What a friend.
He wants to know if you can provide an update on the show tonight.
Thanks, Zeb. I stopped counting. I think after like $1.2 million, and that was before the Apple 7-to-1 split. That was before it, ran back up from it. I think before it, I think it split right around 100, and it ran back up to 200. But yeah, I stopped counting at like 1.2 million because it's.
Oh my
That's
God.
something I want to think about very often.
Yeah, you moved on. Good job. You got to block that out.
All right, you're blocking it out for sure.
Yeah, I recommended Tesla stock on the FFPC boards for $35, and I never bought any. So whatever. I'm an idiot myself.
Okay, so say whatever you will about that. Here's how I know Chris.
That's going to go to zero eventually, Tesla. But
here's how I know Chris Vincent is a genius, Dave. And by the way, Chris Vincent, our guest tonight, a former two-time six-figure cash prize winner in high-stakes fantasy football, 41st place going into Week 3 of the Football Guys Players Championship. Here's how I know you're a genius, Chris. This is the next Zeb Cap story. He says that in Vegas, you had an elaborate plan to hang out at the bar next to the Thunder from Down Under show over at Excalibur. Now, you said, and this is according to Zeb, you said, quote, we can pick off, sorry. He said that you said, quote, we can pick off the horned up MILFs after the show.
I'm sure he never said that.
Hold on. That's Zeb language. That's Zebonese. He said that you guys ended up drinking at the Planet Hollywood Sports Bar and making jokes about the tables there that they have. I'll just say it. We're not on Blue Wire.
What kind of FPC regulations are we under right now?
No, we're good.
We're good. We're good. Say whatever you want.
So he wants to know, he wants me to get you to commit that this was your plan to pick up the, quote, horned up MILFs coming out of the Excalibur Thunder from Down Under show, and he wants to know if you would hang out with me and Dave in Vegas next year and do the exact same thing.
It was a very solid plan in theory, and it wasn't the Thunder from Down Under. It was the Magic Mike show, which is a lot hotter right now.
Oh, that's even better. That's even more genius.
That show, because someone may or may not have done some research on it, is selling out weeks in advance. And if you get there at the right time, you would catch, the horned up MILFs going in and the overserved horned up MILFs coming out of the show. But we weren't able to execute that plan because you get, a bunch of 40, 45-year-old guys drinking in Vegas all day long. We wrap it up a little bit earlier than we planned.
Yeah, but you guys weren't functioning at that point probably anyway.
Yeah, no. Well, it's something to think about for 2020.
What about the horned up gay guys that were coming out of that show?
I don't want to talk about that.
What, we can't, gay people, we can't be, gay people have rights too.
No, go ahead.
Hopefully they had a good time.
All right.
That's it, nothing else.
Chris, go ahead and talk about the gay guys coming out of the Magic Mike show.
I saw a share there were a bunch of gay guys there.
What's the limit on the Zebcap stories? How big it's two?
Well, I'll tell you what.
Tell one.
Tit for tat. Do you have a Zebcap story you want to share on the air? Because we'd love to hear it.
Phrasing.
There's so many, right? It's like picking your favorite kid. You can't do it because there's so many good Zebcap perverted debauchery stories that you can get into.
Zeb thought it would be funny to click on a checkbox. He was doing, something with the DMV. He thought it would be funny to say that, yes, he was a sex offender. He, thinking he can click. I guess he thought he can click, yes, and then click no, after he had a good laugh for himself. But he clicked yes, and, behind the scenes, there's probably, flashing lights and things going off, and it wouldn't let him unclick yes. He had to go and explain his situation to people, and, it was a thing, and he had to work on it. I think that's Zeb in a nutshell.
Awesome. That is great.
He had to go to counseling, hopefully.
Oh, no doubt. And more than that, I'm assuming. That's good stuff.
He had to meet a couple of his neighbors.
Yeah, under not the pretenses that he had hoped for. Hey, by the way, real quick, I have a real fantasy football question I want to ask Chris here.
Unlike all the rest of these.
No, not Thunder Down Under. Troublemaker El Grande, if he ever comes out to Vegas for the FFPC, that is a total Troublemaker El Grande plan about picking off the women coming out of the Magic Mike show. No question.
Sure. I wouldn't doubt it.
All right, real quick, Chris, we do have a real fantasy question here from Roger in Wichita Falls, Texas. He writes, hey, Chris, is Trey Burton going to get back to being the breakout tight end candidate he was when the Bears signed him anytime soon? Thanks. That is Roger in Wichita Falls, Texas. Thank you so much for the email there, Roger. What's your prognosis on Trey Burton this year? I know he came back last week. Are you expecting a breakout this year, or should we slow our roll on that?
I'd say slow your roll. I'm more concerned about Trubisky. He's looked awful the first 2 weeks. He's, I think, second only to the Miami quarterback shuffle as far as awfulness. And Burton, I'm really concerned about, what he's got going on both physically and mentally. His groin's locking up on him, and he's saying it's a mental thing. Now that they have a capable, pass-catching back, a three-down back in Montgomery, I think he's going to soak up a lot of those targets. I think, 50 yards and 5 catches and a touchdown is probably the ceiling for Burton in any given game. I would look elsewhere.
I'm kind of with you on that, and I'm glad I traded him in a bunch of my dynasty leagues prior to the 2019 season. Thank you. What about Allen Robinson? I mean, is he the Bears' pass catcher to own this year?
Oh yeah, I love A-Robbie.
The only game in town.
A year off the surgery, he's looked fantastic, and all the reports out of camp were how great he's looked, and he really seems to be on, although it's kind of a crooked page, the same page with Trubisky right now. He's getting a lot of targets, and he's making a lot of adjustments to make the catches from the bad throws that Mitch is making. Yeah,
if Trubisky comes around, I mean, Robinson, really, the sky's the limit.
Well, even if he doesn't come around.
Anthony Miller's a bust. Can we say that yet?
He looks like a bust, yeah.
Yeah.
But my
Dante
point,
Pettis also a bust.
You think about Allen Robinson, I'm not willing to say that yet, but Allen Robinson, what he did week 1, he had a great game and he could have been better.
Yeah.
And even week 2, I think he was all right too. So I think you look at Allen Robinson, and your point is spot on, Chris. A year after this ACL surgery, this is the year of Allen Robinson, and I look forward to more big games from him. Dave,
no surprise, by the way, Allen Robinson, very high phenom score. Anthony Miller, very low one.
Very low one.
But yeah, people still take guys with low phenom scores.
All right.
Anyway, whatever.
And you can learn more about phenom scores on the High Stakes Lowdown, which is now a part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network.
RotoViz doesn't even publish phenom score anymore.
Oh, they don't?
No.
I didn't know that.
They didn't even do an article.
All right. Well, interesting.
Anyway.
We don't do articles, but we ask the same question every single week on this show, which you're about to ask Chris Vincent.
Oh, what do you do for a living? Oh, we
skipped
that one.
We skipped that one. Yep.
So can you give us an early round pick, Chris, that you would consider benching in week 3, as well as a sleeper that should be started as well? And by the way, I'm noticing that you won $100,000 on 2 defunct contests, so maybe you don't win much money with us because we don't want to go bust.
We don't want to go defunct.
Yeah.
Especially given the information that I was given before the show.
I'm probably benching James White this week. I've been avoiding him the past 3 years, and he just keeps producing, and then I finally took the plunge, drafted him, I think, in the 5th round. And there's just so many mouths to feed there, and New England is just looking so strong. They don't really need to dump it off to him a lot late in games. I think he had like 4 or 5 touches last week. I'm looking at benching him probably for either Carlos Hyde or Miles Sanders. I kind of like Sanders this week. I think it could be a sneaky week to play him. One guy I really like a lot this week is.
Go ahead.
The one guy I really like a lot this week is Curtis Samuel. I actually watched like a super cut a couple nights ago of all the passes Cam threw him last week, and he was wide open with 4 or 5 yards of separation on I think 4 or 5 different times. He should have had 2 touchdowns in that game. I don't know much about this Kyle Allen character, but if he has any kind of accuracy, I can see Curtis really breaking out this week.
So real quick follow-up on that. Cam Newton is not going to play this week. Kyle Allen is. Are you doing anything different with your DJ Moore, with your Curtis Samuel shares than you were if Cam Newton was throwing the ball to him this week?
I'm playing him more. I've been down on Cam for a couple of years. I think he might be done. He every time he gets knocked down, takes him a minute to get off the field. He hasn't been running in 2 years. That was most of his value. I saw him actually drop to one of my dynasty leagues, I think, this week.
Wow. He was actually dropped in one of my leagues this week, too. Not a dynasty. It was a redraft league, and I was really surprised to see it. Listen,
he's got to make it onto the flake scale with all this goofy outfits he wears, too.
What was with the Red Riding Hood grandma outfit that he busted out? What? I don't get it.
I hope he's saving his money.
I'll tell you somebody who I'm not down on, who I've never been down on, Chris Vincent, a guy who has won 2 separate 6-figure grand prizes, a guy who is in the top 50 in the 2019 Football Guys Players Championship as he chases a $250,000 grand prize. Chris, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show tonight. I can't tell you how much Dave and I enjoyed it. Thanks so much. Good luck the rest of the way in all your leagues. And, again, thanks for making some time for us here on this Friday night.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on. I'll see you guys at the Magic Mike
Thanks, Chris.
Nope show next year.
Okay.
We'll be
at the bar, buddy.
We'll be there. We'll listen.
I got the first 4 rounds.
I got the 5th round, and so even if we don't scare up any horned up milfs, we will have a great time. Chris, thanks again. We'll see you in Vegas soon, dude.
Thanks for having me.
Chris Vincent, ladies and gentlemen, a former 2-time 6-figure cash prize winner in high-stakes fantasy football, and he is in 41st place heading into Week 3 of the 2019 Football Guys Players Championship. A couple of things I want to bring up, Dave, before we get out of here. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes left in the show. We'll go a little bit of overtime. The thing is, I don't want to go too overtime because I don't want to have to get into detail on this, but there's a problem uploading it to YouTube if we go too far past an hour.
Really?
Yeah. So I'll talk
the Blue Wire Network if that was what we were.
No, Blue Wire would not have a problem with that.
Unexplained Blue Wire.
Last night, Delaney Walker caught 7 of 9 targets for 64 yards in the Titans' loss to the Jaguars. He actually should have had an 8th grab for an 11-yard touchdown in the third quarter, but the ball was actually tipped on that. Delaney Walker, really the only guy you can count on in the Titans' passing game. And honestly, you look at this guy, Dave, he's not Kittle, Ertz, or Kelsey, but he's probably in the next tier below, right? I mean, at this
you know
point,
why? Because he's healthy. Hunter Henry's out. Njoku out. Ingram is healthy. Who's the other guy out of those top 6? It was you had Howard. Howard's healthy, but no one. You don't throw to him.
Well, we'll see what happens against the Giants.
I think he gets
week.
right this week.
Yeah.
But yeah. I totally agree. Walker's the guy that the football guys used to always be super high on.
Hold on.
And he's doing well this year again.
We have an extra special guest popping on right now, impromptu. Didn't realize this. Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship, Farrell Elliott. Hey, Farrell, let's talk about injuries and the fact that you need to stay on the field. What's the best well, let me interrupt you there, Balky. I think the best ability that you need to have as an NFL player, you know what the best ability you need to have? Availability, and that is something that Delaney Walker had. Oh, thanks so much, Farrell. Really appreciate you joining us this week. But yeah, I'm with you on Delaney Walker for sure, Dave. I think this is a guy that, especially in an FFPC premium format, you need to be starting every week until further notice. Furthermore, in that game last night, in the Gridiron Legends Dynasty League that you and I are a part of,
yeah,
it's a titanic matchup this week. As
who are you playing?
Kurt Kikas, who is 2-0. I think by victory points, I think I'm third in victory points. I think he's first. I could be wrong on that, but we're top. We're at the top echelon. I think you're number 2, by the way. So Kurt Kikas was texting me last night. He's like, "Hey, good luck," and then he's like, "Oh, Fournette, ish," and I'm like, "Yeah, I'm with you, man." But Leonard Fournette, let's talk about his stats. 15 carries, 66 yards. He gets 6 catches for 26 yards. Now, if you remember, he had a 69-yard fourth quarter run. Probably should have been a touchdown, but it wasn't. Fournette gets tackled by Kevin Byard, future All-Pro. I don't think he's an All-Pro safety yet for Tennessee. But Fournette, before that, 12 carries for -8 yards. He had losses of -3, -7, -4, and -5 yards, and that doesn't include his 0 games. This was bad. This was really, really bad. He has not reached 100 yards from scrimmage or scored a touchdown yet this week, and he's been getting a ton of snaps. Now, he will get 10 days to rest before he goes to Denver to take on the Broncos, Dave, but you got to be pushing the panic button if you drafted Leonard Fournette this year, even in the third round.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you should ask Farrell's buddy Fenton, who was all about Leonard Fournette.
Oh, he was about Fournette?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
All over the place, and I'm like, I don't really understand what's so good about him.
Yeah.
He was supposedly in better shape this year, and this was the year he got.
He said he lost some weight, I thought.
Yeah, but you never know. I mean, it's only 3 games, I guess. He's got a shot still, but I would not be. I wouldn't be counting my $500,000 if I had.
No, I wouldn't either. And honestly, okay, so Fournette ended up getting like 16 point whatever last night, between 16 and 17 points. That's a dynasty league where I've been looking to sell Fournette. Is now the time? Did he just hit his ceiling last night?
No, I don't think so.
Do you think he has better things in store?
Yeah, I think you get more for him.
Okay.
I mean, would you rather have Leonard Fournette right now or Damian Williams? I'd rather have Fournette.
Oh, yeah.
Fournette's healthy, and they're being drafted in similar spots. Fournette still has the pedigree, right? And that does last. So I feel like, I mean, the 60-some-yard run does count. It's a run. I mean, that's all part of football. So not to be like the devil's advocate saying he's going to be great. I'm just saying that, maybe he comes around. It is possible that he still puts together a pretty good season. I mean, 16 points is not bad.
No, it's not bad. I will wait for better things.
Just
the
like
same thing that gives me pause is, who my second starting running back was in that league this week is a guy that Chris Vincent told me he's sitting, and that's James White.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, it was mentioned in the chat room that I think it was Wasp guy found it odd that he was benching James White with Antonio Brown being released because there's a lot of targets that Brown, not a lot, but some targets that Brown probably soaked up off of White. So I think that's a good point. I think that White actually will be fine.
We'll see what happens. I want to pound a couple of emails here real quick, but I have to bring this up. Kern Reeve in the chat room tonight. My 3 kids asked me last Sunday, quote, "Dad, can we have our own FFPC team someday?" End quote. And he says, Quote, yes, children, if you are good and brave, it will come. End quote. I am serious. If that's not a Christmas story, I don't know what is.
That's great.
All right, let's move on. Does anyone's fantasy value go up when the Titans make the inevitable the inevitable quarterback switch from Mariota to Tannehill? Thanks, guys. That's Tony in Vandergrift, Pennsylvania. Dave, how do you assess the Tennessee? By the way, let me ask you this real quick, selfish plug. In a dynasty league, Corey Davis was dropped. How much would you bid on him?
$8. He should be
out of 1,000.
He should be shot.
My
I'm
point.
just kidding. No, if he was dropped in a dynasty league.
He was dropped in a dynasty league. Sigmund Bloom on the Football Guys podcast actually made this point. Corey Davis is probably not going to do anything for Tennessee.
600.
But what about his next team?
A lot. A lot.
All right. I don't have 600 left quite.
I've never been a huge Corey Davis fan. Coming into this year, I thought he had a potential, and I was like, okay, maybe take a shot at him. But the quarterback play has been so bad. I can't get under. I don't know if it's the quarterback play or he just sucks. I think it's probably a combination of it.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's still young. Is he the next Dante Moncrief, who we've always said is going to suck? Or is it somebody else that ends up coming around?
Well,
he might come around.
Consider this, too. In 2 of his first 3 games, he was blanketed by Denzel Ward for Cleveland and then Jalen Ramsey last night.
Yeah, it's a great point. It really is, yeah.
All right, so to switch back to redraft mode here for me, if Ryan Tannehill takes over a quarterback, which he may not do for week 4, but maybe week 5 and on, does that change anybody's fantasy value for Tennessee?
I guess if they do switch to Tannehill, I don't see how. I mean, he's a legitimately solid backup. I mean, he was an all-right NFL quarterback, not great, but I mean, Mariota is so bad. I don't think it hurts anybody. It can only help.
I don't want to get into it because we're short on time, but that's good analysis. Let's go to Stu in Springfield, Massachusetts. Just saw Jimmy Graham is going to try to play this week. Should I start him or Will Dissly? Never punting on tight end in the FFPC again. Signed, Stu in Springfield, Mass. I like it. So you're playing Dissly over Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, Graham's hurt.
All right, here's the other.
Sucks, and he doesn't get enough targets.
Here's the other thing I want to bring up about the Packers this week. Devontae Adams and I don't know if it's his wife or his girlfriend or whatever, significant other, expecting a kid. He did not practice today. And I think, now granted, I'm not sounding the alarm bells, but I think you should be watching that Sunday morning in case this is his first kid. If he does indeed miss the game, you need to get him out of your lineups. It is a noon start, thankfully.
It's in Green Bay, right?
It is in Green Bay, but I think that's something that you need to be watching as an FYI.
I will say this: Green Bay hospitals, the stadium is like in the middle of the city.
Literally.
So it's like if the baby's getting delivered at Bellin Hospital, it's like 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
I mean, he could walk to the game after the kid gets delivered.
Yeah.
I mean, everything's so close. So, I mean, you can't tell me they can't manipulate the millimeters dilated for 3 freaking hours.
They did it for me with my firstborn when Breaking Bad was going off the air, and I wanted to watch the episode of Breaking Bad before my wife gave
But that wasn't
birth.
the excuse you gave, but that's so funny.
No, but it wasn't the excuse I gave, but it was indeed the reason. And I am a terrible person.
And what was the strategy you used? You said, oh, should she push or not push?
No. The nurse came in and said, okay, well, it looks like she can start pushing if she wants. And my wife, she was talking to my wife. She's like, oh, you can start pushing if you want. And my wife kind of looked at me and she kind of had like a feeling of like a 50-50. Okay. And I'm like, wow, listen, I don't think she's ready yet. And this is the third last episode of Breaking Bad before it was going off the air, which, by the way, we got to get together on October 11th. You know what that is?
I don't know.
It's a Friday, so we're doing the show, but that's when El Camino comes out on Netflix, which is the Breaking Bad movie.
Okay, great.
No, not great.
No, I mean, I'm not hyped up like you are. Just
I don't know how you're not, because there's a total of 10 Breaking Bad cameos on this. It stars Aaron Paul. We know Skinny Pete and Badger are back for this.
Right.
We have to get together early. We'll have a few adult pops. We'll watch the movie, and then we'll come on the air and do the show.
We're gonna do the We're gonna watch the movie, then come on the show.
Yes. It comes out at midnight on Friday. I don't plan on staying up that late.
Why don't we do the show and then watch it?
I guess
the show is technically work.
Okay, no, we'll do it that way. That's fine. We'll do that. October 11th.
Too much personal crap on this show, by the way.
Hold on. Speaking of personal crap, then you know what you're doing the next day, October 12th. The show with Leo and Balky. Actually, no. Sports Bar Spotlight Reality Bus Tour. You're going to come on that.
No, I'm not.
Why not?
When's the Breaking Bad thing?
October 11th.
I'm getting hip surgery October 9th.
This is perfect, Dave.
I'll be on Vicodin and Percocet for like 2 weeks. I won't even be on the
perfect way to watch a show about meth. This is perfect.
I'm getting a hip replacement. I'm not going to be doing jack. I won't even be around. I'll be
sleeping.
I won't be on the show on the 11th. I'm off. I'm sorry. Maybe the next week.
John in Santa Clara, California.
I'll be really high.
John,
come on.
John in Santa Clara, California. Dear OJ and Thurman, is there any reason to start Frank Gore or pick up TJ Yeldon and start?
Gore is the best.
Hold
player
on,
in
just
football.
let me finish the GD question. Is there any reason to start Frank Gore or pick up TJ Yeldon and start them this week with Singletary expected to miss? That is John in Santa Clara, California. Thank you for the email, John. And I will tell you right now, Devin Singletary, since you wrote this email, is officially out. Dave, you are starting Frank Gore this week?
Yeah, and John, you're from Santa Clara, and I know where that is. That's where the Niners Stadium is. You've seen Frank Gore for the years. You should really know this already. Frank Gore is a Hall of Famer. He's a superstar. He's 40-some years old, whatever he is. He's going to have 80 yards, a touchdown, and like 3 catches for 30 yards. He's going to have like 15 points. That's great. He's going to be perfect. Gore is great. That's it. There's nothing else to talk about.
Sorry, Kern Reeve is birth shaming me on the chat room right now, and I just realized what he said.
You chose Breaking Bad over Breaking Water. That's actually really funny.
Yeah, that's funny. They're way too clever for me at this point. So Gore for me, Dave. Can we put 5? Are you talking about advocating for Gore this week?
Yeah.
For starting him?
Yes.
Okay.
Why wouldn't you?
He's
a great running back, the starting running back for the Bills.
Okay. Let me pick out somebody here, and you tell me if you'll put 5 on this, as far as starting. Okay. Nah, that's too uneven. I don't like that either. Okay. What about this? What about this? Hold on. Listen to this.
You're a very big
Duke Johnson.
Yeah, I'll take Gore over Duke Johnson.
Okay.
Duke Johnson sucks.
Okay. So I have Duke Johnson, and I have 5 on it. Duke Johnson, more FFPC points in Week 3 than Frank Gore. I got 5 on it.
I got 5 on Frank Gore as a 3-point bonus. Cincinnati.
So you have Gore.
Yes, and you have Duke.
And
I catches Johnson.
Duke
who barely
Johnson.
plays, and Carlos Hyde's going to be.
Are you giving up on Duke Johnson, by the way?
Not really, but I mean, he's not really getting the usage you're looking for.
You know, it's funny. On my local fantasy show, I keep trumpeting Duke Johnson, and my co-host Leo keeps saying, "Well, bulky Carlos Hyde," and you know what? Carlos Hyde has really surprised me, but I'm still on the Duke Johnson train.
Me too, actually.
Okay.
Carlos Hyde's doing great.
Final email of the night. Let's wrap this up. Need some help. DK Metcalf at home against the Saints or Philip Lindsay at Lambeau Field. That is Paul in Lamar, Colorado. So I'm assuming he is a Broncos fan. So who are you starting, Metcalf or Lindsay this week, Dave?
I would start Lindsay, higher floor. Metcalf could be a 0 for all we know.
Against the Saints defense?
He's still a rookie. Saints defense isn't that bad. They were a high, good player.
But Metcalf's been crushing it the first 2 weeks.
Crushing it? Has he?
Let's look at it. I'm going to look it up right now. I think
even if he's had a couple solid games, he's still a rookie. Lindsay is a second-year player that's heavily involved, gets 60% of the
by the way,
plus catches.
And I learned this from listening to the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship podcast this week. Do you know that Royce Freeman averaged 5.3 yards per carry in the opening week? I can't remember who it was against. It was somebody really bad. But against the Bears, he averaged like 5.2 yards per carry.
I like Freeman.
He's actually been doing very, very good.
Spot. I know he's actually doing as well as or better than Lindsay right now.
So here's what DK Metcalf's done. Opening week against Cincinnati, 4 catches for 89 yards. Against Pittsburgh last week, 3 catches for 61 yards with a touchdown. But you're still going with Lindsay with the higher floor.
Yes.
All right. I'm mostly playing devil's advocate. I think I would still start Metcalf, but I don't feel strongly enough to bet on it. I could see either of those guys really doing good. Lindsay's been catching passes for Denver, and I think that continues against Green Bay this week.
Plus, this game should be pretty high scoring. Denver's offense is all
I don't think it's high scoring. Do you think it's high scoring?
Yeah.
But,
I mean, like not 70 points or anything.
No. Okay. Take a guess at the over/under on this game.
47.
All right. It's currently at 43.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, I'm actually surprised it's that low. I guess the Packers' D's been playing well.
Let me propose this. I will take the under at 45.
So you're
because you thought it'd be at 47. So I'm splitting the difference.
Balky, I know I look like an idiot, but I'm not a total idiot where I'm just going to go add 2 points to the Vegas line.
No, I'm not adding 2 points. I'm splitting the difference between what you thought it was and what it actually is.
Yes, I will take what it actually is. Why would I give you 2 points?
Because okay, all right.
Just because I didn't know
That's
the Vegas
fine.
line, I'm all of a sudden supposed to pay a penalty?
Well, because that's what you said.
So I said something, so that means that I have to bet by it?
I got it. I'll take under 43. I got under 43 in the Broncos-Packers
Fine, you know what?
game.
I'll give you a half point, 43.5.
43.5. All right, that seems fair.
That actually is something. Half point is.
That seems fair. I have under 43 in the Broncos-Packers game.
I'll take over 43.5.
I got 5 on it.
I got 5
on it.
This goes out to all the people that said, and there a ton of people came up to me in Kentucky and saying that it's Jim Cole is one of them actually said, you guys don't have a whole lot of wagers this year. We have a ton of wagers. And by the way, I did really good last week on our wagers.
Whatever.
So I'm making some headway. You're way ahead of me since the show started, so I'm trying to make it up. All right, that's going to do it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize we went a little overtime tonight. I want to thank our guest tonight, Chris Vincent. Want to wish him the best of luck. I think I did that on the air.
Balky's rooting for you, Chris.
I am
number one of anyone we've had on this.
This will be his third six-figure championship here. So I want to thank him.
The FPC goes bankrupt with Pay the Fan and FFOC.
All right, moving on. I want to thank Dave Gerzak, despite his needling of me on the show. The FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and of course each and every one of you. We will be back next week. Even though I said it seemed like we were off this past week, we weren't off this past week. Maybe it's just that time. Between the two shows, it seems like we don't do a show. We do a show every Friday, 10, 9 Central. Next week, week 2, Football Guys Players Championship overall leaders Andrew and Chris Whitney. Both of them will be on the show next week. We're going to talk about their team and the success they've had in high-stakes fantasy football over the last few years. Thanks so much for joining us tonight. Good luck in week 3. Hopefully the ball bounces your way. Trainwreck of the show.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by MyFFPC.com that was broadcast live and heard around the world. Eric and Dave will be back next week with more analysis, interviews, and advice from a guest much smarter than they are. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk with you again next week.
We're on the cement floor, even more so if we on tour. Me and E explore the country, wondering about the evening before. Trying to explain where the time went, while other rappers find a studio to grind in.
If I ever get some time, I'm going to, I promise you, maybe it won't be for week 3, but I'm going to get some new theme music for the show.
Sounds good. I've enjoyed this, but probably needs a refresher.
It needs a refresher.
We can do some rock for once.
Do you want to do rock? Because I have
get off the rap music.
I have a bunch of rock, so we'll recruit 2-packer on this. I do have.
I don't want to Godsmack type heavy. Crap.
No, we won't do that. Chancellor Warhol is going to be our intro. I think I told you this already.
I don't know who that is.
It's a little-known rapper. He's had one big hit, and we're going to use it. And hopefully you.
So we are using rap, okay.
For the intro, we can definitely do rock for the outro. Do you have any suggestions for rock? I should ask you before I ask 2-packer.
No.
You like Foo Fighters, right?
Yeah, in general I do.
I
like the song Walk.
Walk is good.
Yeah.
You know what's
funny? The song Volcano by Jimmy Buffett.
I'm not familiar with that. You know what's funny about Walk is when back in my collegiate days,
kind of joking.
I interviewed Chris Shiflett, who is the lead guitarist of the Foo Fighters. He still is the lead guitarist of the Foo Fighters. And at the end of the interview, on a whim, I asked him if he would do a station ID for the station I was working for.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, yeah, no problem.
Who is this again?
Chris Shiflett, the lead guitarist for Foo Fighters.
Oh, cool, yeah.
And so he recorded it, I saved it, and then I produced it. And the song I used for the station ID was Walk.
Oh, nice.
Off the, I can't remember what album that was. It wasn't
I forgot all this stupid
Color and Shape. It was...
I don't know their album.
This is irritating me. I'm going to have to look it up. But anyway, so I will look into Walk for the outro.
If there's like a good part or whatever.
There is a good part, and I'll use the same part I used for the Shiflett.
I mean, the whole song
ID.
is great, but anyway.
Yeah, it's fantastic. All right, so we'll look into that. Listen, good luck in week 3, everybody. I hope the ball bounces your way, as I just stated. Thanks to our guest tonight. Thanks to all the people that made this possible. We'll talk to you again next week at 10, 9 Central.